Today, I want to share some tips on the forehand short game, specifically the push and the flick. Alright, let's start with the forehand push. First key point, peak of its bounce. For all your pushes and long pushes, on both forehand and backhand, you must contact the ball at the peak of its bounce. A common problem with the forehand short game is that players are out of position, with their arm too far from their body. This brings us to the second key point, get your body into position. Third key point, to push back a left side spin serve, breaking to your right, which is common among amateurs. You must contact the right side of the ball. By contacting the ball's right side, you can direct your push either down the line or cross court. Pushing down the line results in a higher quality ball, while pushing cross court creates a wider angle. If you push the very back of the ball, your return will be slow and you risk popping it up. Fourth, you must learn to use the tip of your racket when you push. This is pushing with the whole arm. And this is pushing with the racket tip. Notice the difference, arm push versus racket tip push. The great thing about using the racket tip is you can place the ball anywhere. The magic here is that when you use the racket tip, your forearm doesn't push forward. It stays in place after contact. Now, what happens when you use your arm to push? Watch. That's an arm push. Now with the racket tip, for a long push. The final point of force application is right at the tip of the racket. The racket tip is this far from the ball. Using your arm creates a very large, inefficient motion. If you rely on your arm and keep your racket tip static, your push will either pop up or go long, and you'll have poor feel for the ball. Furthermore, using the racket tip allows you to create better friction to control the incoming spin. The same principle applies to the backhand. This is a backhand push using the arm. And this is a backhand push using the racket tip. Fifth point, let's talk about the racket angle for your push. I always start with a neutral, base racket angle because I first need to gauge the amount of spin on the serve. Imagine the ball is a clock face, the side is 3 o'clock, the bottom is 6 o'clock. This is easy to understand. My default contact point for a push is around 4 o'clock on the ball, because I find if you meet the ball solidly, it won't go in the net. The reason many pushes go into the net, especially on long balls, is because you're just bumping it, creating no forward drive and absorbing all of the opponent's spin. If the serve is very heavy, I'll make my racket a bit more vertical and push forward to counteract the spin. So I recommend you start by practicing your push with a contact point between 4 and 4:30 on the ball. On my forehand, I use a more vertical racket angle than on my backhand because the risk of popping the ball up is much greater. Professional players have incredible adjustment and error correction abilities. After misreading 2 or 3 balls, they adapt immediately. If I feel my return is ineffective, popping up or getting attacked, I will switch to a flick, a banana flick, or a flip. However, if I execute a long push and my opponent struggles with backspin, I won't force myself to switch to a topspin rally. The reason your push goes in the net isn't that the serve is too spinny. It's because your footwork is too slow. You're pushing into the net because your feet and body haven't moved into position, and you're jabbing at the ball from too far away. You're also not getting enough friction on the ball. To execute a spinny push, you must brush the ball forward and downward. This action pulls the forearm along, which is completely different from actively pushing with your forearm. In terms of force, I would say 80% of the power comes from my fingers and wrist. The rest of my body is relaxed. Watch how I only use my fingers and wrist to push the ball. I'm not using my shoulder, upper arm, elbow, forearm, legs, or waist. but I am applying maximum force with my hand. And the power comes from just this much distance. This makes my power generation extremely compact and efficient. The entire motion is your fingers leading your wrist, which makes the racket tip accelerate instantly. There should be no forward pushing motion from your forearm. Pay attention here. When I take my backswing and the ball comes, does my racket look close to the ball or far away? This is too far. This is close. To a viewer, your problem of having a disconnected stroke is a major issue. Let me give you 3 golden rules, even though today's topic is the push. First, compete as much as possible. Using matches as a form of training is very effective. Second, drill your footwork relentlessly. Unless you play with long pips, you must practice your footwork, whether you use short or medium pips, as it's key to improving your timing and positioning in matches. Third, you must practice serve and receive. In training, do fewer basic forehand/backhand drills and focus exclusively on serve and attack and service return drills. After 1 or 2 months of this, your game will improve significantly. I guarantee you'll gain at least 3 rating points. Back to the push, many of you keep your racket too far from the ball. When you're too far, and you move forward as the ball bounces toward you, the combined forces will send the ball long. Therefore, you must stay close to the ball. This will give you the confidence to execute an aggressive, heavy push. All my powerful pushes are possible because I'm close to the ball. If my backswing is too large and I try to add power, the ball will go out. So, if you're deceived by a short ball and your footwork is slow, creating distance, you have to play a controlled, soft push. Use only 50% of your power. But if you read the serve correctly and get into position early, use 80% power and really dig into the ball with a heavy push. Because top players often use deceptive motions, you might be slow to react. If you realize your feet or hands are late, you must adjust to a slice push or a side spin push. You see Sun Yingsha use this side spin push often. Look at players like Miwa Haramoto, it's very difficult to read the length of their hook and reverse spin serves. Even world champions face this challenge. They also misread serves. So, if you step in and realize the ball is further away than you anticipated, use a side spin push or a softer, controlled push. If you anticipate correctly and can stay close to the ball, then commit to an aggressive push. This all comes from match experience. So, why did my push go high? Let's analyze it. Look closely. Am I not contacting the ball on the top half of my racket? Same thing on the backhand. Watch carefully, I'll turn so you can see better. The contact point is on the upper half of the racket. This happens because your racket is lower than the ball. When you contact the top half of your racket, the more you try to push down, the higher the ball will pop up. Every single one of your high pushes is a result of your racket being too low. Advanced players serve no-spin or topspin balls very low precisely to force you to drop your hand, make contact on the upper part of your racket, and pop the ball up for an easy kill. Now what if I change my motion? If the serve is the same, but I keep my racket high like this, watch the trajectory. I can now contact the ball on the lower half of my racket. This applies to my backhand as well. Keep the racket high, contact with the lower half. By doing this, I gain control over the ball's arc. Your sense of space isn't just about the forward-backward distance to the ball, that's basic. It's also about managing the height. Many players miss returns because their spatial awareness, especially of height, is poor. You have to get your racket up. The ball's bounce height is fixed. If the peak is here, but your racket is down here, you're guaranteed to pop it up for your opponent to smash. If the ball bounces to this height, your racket must be at this height. If it's higher, your racket must be higher. Your racket must always be higher than the ball. You can even start much higher and, during your downward brushing motion, find the correct contact point on the lower half of your racket. But you can never be lower than the ball. If you are, you will inevitably contact the upper half of the racket. And the harder you try to chop down, the higher the ball will fly. You see this a lot, especially with penhold players. Their forehand and backhand pushes often start too low. Penholders are particularly prone to this mistake. Why do we tell you to keep your wrist up and firm? Because a firm wrist helps you keep the racket head high. A dropped wrist naturally lowers the racket. With a dropped wrist, even if your hand is high, you're just scooping the bottom of the ball, which leads to a high return. If your opponent can't attack your high ball now, it's only because they lack the skill. Eventually, someone will. Don't give them that opportunity. So remember, don't just follow the ball with your eyes and lower your hand when the ball is low. Keep your racket up and use its lower half to contact the ball. Do this, and your push will have a perfect, low trajectory. Your first priority is to keep the ball from going high, so your opponent can't attack it. That's the most important factor, before you even think about spin, speed, or placement. A high ball is dangerous no matter where it goes. Remember, your backswing must start with your hand higher than the ball. Now, let's talk about why your push goes into the net. This is most common when pushing from the backhand corner. Watch this. The serve comes, and I miss. Why did my push go into the net? The reason I missed that serve is because my stroke, from contact to finish, was too small and hesitant. I was afraid to commit and just bumped the ball. When you push, you must accelerate forward and be committed to brushing the ball. The sensation should not be a bump that sends the ball forward, but a brush that grips the ball and reverses its rotation. It's not about bumping the ball, but brushing it. Trust me, if you just apply this tiny bit of explosive snap, you will stop pushing serves into the net. You're pushing into the net because at the moment of contact, your motion is passive, you're just guiding or bumping the ball instead of actively brushing it. Stop just bumping the ball. For beginners, it's okay, but to improve, you must add a little force. Use the racket tip to apply a small amount of friction. The opponent's spin will be easily neutralized, the ball will clear the net, and your return will have good quality. Join as a member for early access to new videos and to unlock exclusive members-only shorts. Thank you for supporting the channel's growth.